Hello guys, this is Dark Fox Sage 2 and we are back with our new fanfic, which is What If Naruto Fell in Love with Haku After She Saved Him Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and please subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to upload more fanfic like these for you all. Now let's start the fanfiction. The next day Naruto got up and after seeing that Haku was asleep as well as everyone else in his head, he walked behind some bushes and made a kage bunshin and then used an ice mirror to transport himself a mile away while his kage bunshin distracted Jiraiya. He then took off toward the direction he was told to head the previous day at full speed. Jiraiya was awoken when he heard Naruto unzip his pants and stayed hidden until he came back out from the bushes and went through a slow process of making a spear and building a small fire pit and tried for 2 hours to start a fire. When the fire finally started, Jiraiya had had enough and threw an acorn at Naruto and was stunned when Naruto went up in smoke. Realizing he was tricked, he quickly put out the fire and took off in the direction Naruto had been going the previous day. Around 7 hours later, he found the first traces of Naruto in the form of a wrapper from a ration bar. Had it not been for the name on the wrapper marking it as one from Konoha, he might have missed it as only trash. Naruto, for his part, after his clone dispelled, increased his speed as much as he could, and when he felt low on chakra, ate a ration bar and then later on a soldier pill. He ran for nearly 36 hours straight before he stopped, but when he stopped he was at the place Kyuubi wanted him to go. When Naruto entered his mind from exhaustion, Haku started chewing his ass out for being stupid and running his body into the ground like that. I could describe it, but as anyone knows, it basically the same rant most women use when a guy does something stupid, so I will let you imagine it. Zabuza tried to say something only to be decked by Haku. Kyuubi used his infinite wisdom to stay quiet. After 3 hours of Haku ranting, Naruto finally had enough and did the only thing he could think of to shut her up. He kissed her. After a few moments and they broke apart, Naruto looked at the half-lidded eyes of Haku and said, "Will you be quiet now? You were giving me a headache." Zabuza and Kyuubi both slapped their foreheads as they knew he just opened another can of trouble. Haku looked at Naruto and the temperature in the room dropped to 0 and Haku asked, "I am giving you a headache, am I? Let's see if I can make it a migraine," in a ruthlessly cold voice that sent chills down everyone's spines. Naruto acted on pure instinct and started dodging the icicles that had formed on the ceiling and started falling at him. After about half an hour, Haku had managed to get him into a cage made of ice like a prison cell, and she asked, "How do you feel now?" in a sweet voice. Naruto swallowed a lump in his throat and said, "Perfect, my princess. Everything you touch in my life is perfect." Haku giggled and said, "Good." And she let the cage melt and walked over and wrapped her arms around him and kissed him, and Naruto let out the tension he had when she did, thinking the worst was over. Haku broke the kiss and said, "You tell me that again and I will make sure you never have any kids," and walked away leaving a pale Naruto. Kyuubi decided that Naruto needed to get up, so he forced his chakra into Naruto's system, forcing Naruto out of his mind. When Naruto awoke, he looked around and could just barely make out the area around him and saw the ocean in front of him, but in the ocean a few feet of shore was some kind of archway with a pole on each side and one across the top that had a circle cut out in the middle on the top that went all the way through, and an X was in the middle of the circle. The sun had yet to rise, but it would at any moment. Kyuubi said, "Listen quickly. When the sun comes up, there is a stone behind you and you will see an X appear on it. When you see the X, put some blood in the center and channel chakra into the blood until you see a bridge appear on the water. When it appears, take off across the bridge and don't stop until you reach the first island. Once there, find the next arch like this one and wait until moonrise and do it again. It should take about 7 hours to get to the island, and that will give you 4 hours to rest before we can go to the next island. We have a total of 7 islands we have to cross before we can actually stop and rest for more than a few hours. Just keep repeating sunrise and moonrise at every other island. Do you understand?" Naruto thought, "Yeah, I got it." There it is. And when he was a wooden bridge pop up, he started running across it, but after running for about 20 minutes, he looked behind him and saw that he only had about 50 boards each way total, as one would rise and one would set. Naruto realized if he stopped, he would be in the middle of the ocean without anything to walk on but water, and that would eat his chakra faster than just running. Jiraiya had arrived when Naruto started running across the bridge, and he was about to follow when he saw the bridge starting to go into the water. He was stunned and he looked around and saw Naruto blood on the stone and watched as water ran over the stone and made the blood go away, and he saw the outline of the X go across the ground slowly toward the water and thought, so that's how it works. Ingenious. Looks like I am stuck here until sunrise tomorrow. For the next 4 days Naruto kept this pace going of resting a few hours and then going Aegean. Had it not been for his supply of ration bars and soldier pills, he would have not made such great progress. After stopping last night, Kyuubi told him to rest as tomorrow would be the last challenge before they made it to Whirlpool. Naruto had slept all night and awoke about 10 a.m. and found him some fruit to eat as well as a freshwater spring on the island. Naruto then followed Kyuubi's instruction and walked onto a cliff that overlooked a beach, and when Naruto looked off the cliff he gasped and thought, so that's why it's called Whirlpool Country. Naruto looked out on the ocean and he saw a coral reef around a huge island, but because of the way the reef was made it looked like a huge whirlpool. Kyuubi said, yes, but don't let the view fool you. This is the final defense of the island before you get to it. It might not look it, but the water is running through those coral reefs with enough force to eat chakra fast. You only have about an hour to get across before you would have to eat a soldier pill or die if you had not had any. The current is so much that it will literally try and pull you around the island and not let you approach. You will have to run with the current and approach in a spiral like the design you had on your orange outfit until you actually make it to the island. If you stop moving at any time, the water will push you back out away from the island. Our ancestors made this effect so no one could disturb our homeland, and if they made it then they would have been extremely weakened, so we could either capture them or kill them depending on why they came. Naruto was stunned and asked, is there anything else I should know to help do this? Kyuubi thought and said, no, just don't stop. Even if you have to take a soldier pill, don't stop, and don't touch the coral reefs either. There are seals in them that drain chakra if you touch them. Zabuza whispered to Haku, they sure want their privacy. Haku just nods. Naruto saw something flying in the air and asked, what's that? Kyuubi looked at what Naruto was looking at and said, that would be a dragon. If one comes and tries to stop you, just keep running, but don't be rude. Answer his questions but keep running. If you get pulled under the water we all die. This is not a joke, so only go when you are ready. Naruto walked down the cliff and sat down a few moments and made sure his soldier pills were handy and easy to get to in his shirt pocket and tried to calm himself down, and then stood up and took off across the water. When he felt the water change he knew he was in the whirlpool, so he started running at a slight angle with the water. He had made it around the island 2 times so far and was about halfway there when a shadow flew overhead and a dragon came flying beside him, and it asked, who are you and why have you come? Naruto kept running and said, my name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze and my uncle Sherlock told me to come here to meet my grandparents, as he kept running around the island. The dragon flew beside Naruto and sniffed the air around him and said, Sherlock disappeared nearly 14 years ago. How do you know him? Naruto kept running and said, he is sealed in me by my father who summoned the Shinigami to do the sealing. The dragon narrowed its eyes and said, if your father was not Sherlock, then who are your parents? Naruto was getting tired and reached for a soldier pill and ate it and said, Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. The dragon's eyes got wide for a moment and Naruto was feeling sick from all the energy he had been burning lately and using soldier pills like he had and started to lose his balance on the water when an idea popped in his head and started doing hand signs and changed into his kitsune form and the dragon saw this and sniffed once more and said, "When you make it to shore do not leave the beach or you will be killed. Someone will escort you to see the king." And it flew away leaving Naruto running on all fours even faster and making great strides to get to the island. About 35 minutes later Naruto finally made it to the shore and collapsed from chakra exhaustion after that still in his fox form. When Naruto awoke he was in a dark room and could not see anything in the room but knew he was on a bed by how soft the object he was on felt. Naruto rested a moment and said, "Hello, anyone there?" No answer came in Naruto's side but then he heard a noise of a latch and a door opened with blinding light illuminating the room he was in and Naruto had to adjust his eyes and saw he was still in his fox form and changed back and a person walked through about 40 years old with an eye patch on his left eye and he said, "Welcome sir. Please follow me." And turned and started to walk away. Naruto got up and was stiff and tired but followed the man. They walked down a long corridor and then turned left and walked for about 5 minutes when they came to a set of large double doors. Naruto was awed by the design as on one side was a dragon and on the other a kitsune and the man said, "Wait here," and he left Naruto walking back the way he came. Naruto thought, "Hey, what now?" Kyuubi was quite a moment and said, "Listen carefully Naruto. When they ask you who you repeat what I say right now. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze and I invoke the right of ritual tribunal. After you say that do not say anything else or do anything unless I tell you. Don't look around the room or anything. You must act like you are king and don't bow to anyone. If you show any sign of weakness here and now you will be dead before you know it. Here they come." Naruto heard a noise and both doors opened up with a man opening each door and a third man was in the center and he said, "Follow me." And Naruto followed him and led him through the middle of the room on a red carpet and up to a set of stairs that had a set of chairs on it and an old man who had red and white hair with red eyes looked down at Naruto with a cold look on his face. Beside him was a woman with black hair and green eyes looking at Naruto with much the same eyes but also a hint of something else but Naruto was unsure as to what. The man on the throne said, "Who are you?" Naruto said, "My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze and I invoke the right of ritual tribunal." Gasps were heard around the room though Naruto did not know where they came from as he looked straight ahead and the man on the throne narrowed his eyes and said, "What gives you a right to ask this?" Naruto remained silent. The woman beside him said, "Please answer my husband," in a kinder voice. Naruto stayed silent. The man who brought Naruto up to the stairs got in Naruto's face and said, "Answer his majesty when he speaks to you." Naruto looked at the king and said nothing though his eyes were changing from blue to red. Kyuubi smirked and said, "Repeat what I say word for word." Naruto said, "Listen up you little insect. I don't care if you are the third strongest of the royal guard. Kushina still kicked your ass when she caught you peeking on her at the hot springs and my uncle who is inside me now said when he gets out of here he is going to give you another bite on your other ass cheek but this time he will use his permanent fangs. Go play with your tail one wing before I lose my temper and break your other wing." As he looked at the man who was in his face like he was beneath him. The man on the throne said, "The ritual of tribunal shall commence immediately. Please escort Naruto to the chair." Naruto followed the man who was looking at Naruto like he was judging him as he led him out on a balcony that had a single chair with arm restraints on it and after Kyuubi told him to sit down and stay calm he was tied to the chair. About 20 minutes later Naruto was asleep in a chair on a balcony but below him there were nearly 2,000 people all standing looking up. The king walked out and said, "The boy here claims to be my grandson. He has invoked the rites of ritual tribulation. Let's watch and see if he speaks the truth and decide what to do." And the people cheered. Suddenly the sky above the island changed and turned dark, and then the sky took on the same view as Zabuza and Haku saw when they first met Kyuubi. The people watched as Naruto was named and the king and queen gasped when they saw their daughter and her passing away and proving that the boy was indeed their grandson. Then the people watched the ceiling and then were outright pissed with Naruto life. Now let's have a little history lesson for those of you who don't know this. The people of Whirlpool are either kitsune or dragon for the most part, with maybe only 2% of the island as regular human who have earned the right to live here, either them or their ancestors. They respect each other dearly to the point the kitsune are the king and queen of the island while the dragons are their loyal guards and trusted allies. After nearly 14 years of believing the royal family who has ruled in peace for over 20,000 years with its subject was going to end with both heirs to the throne believed dead, and suddenly a child prince shows up one day and then the people see their prince being treated like an animal that should be killed would be like saying the sun is ice cold. The people of Whirlpool were at the point of wanting to kill anything in Konoha. They continued to watch and soon saw the people who were Naruto precious people, and they watched him discovering why he was hated, and many vowed to kill Mizuki very slowly. They watched everything including the wave mission, and many people cheered when they saw Naruto meet his uncle and learned his birthright. They had also heard of Haku life and saw the way the prince liked her, making most like her as well, and they saw Zabuza being named his bodyguard, and while some may have felt like protesting, they felt that he had the right but he would be trained to be better. Then they watched Naruto play the Hokage, and many of the kitsune snickered at the prank he pulled on Team 7 and skillfully lied about why he wanted to come here. They watched as Naruto met Tenten and Dustin, and then Naruto revealing his true origins, and then the trip here and Zabuza telling Naruto he had Dustin and Tenten not to reveal anything then up until Naruto sat in the chair. When it was over, the king was quiet for a moment, trying to restrain his emotions, and finally asked, "What is the verdict?" A man with green hair said, "I, the leader of the first Dragon Knight, swear my protection of Prince Naruto." A woman with red hair said, "I, the leader of the second Dragon Knights, swear my protection." This continued as 12 different people swore to protect Naruto. When that was over, a woman stepped forward and said, "I, leader of the North Kitsunes, swear to follow the rule of Naruto and accept him as my prince." A man stepped forward and said, "I, leader of the West, also accept Naruto as my prince." A kid about 15 said, "Long live Prince Naruto," says the East, making several laugh at his joking attitude. An old woman with white hair said, "I, leader of the South and oldest of the Kitsune, swear on my life to not only accept Naruto as my prince but also swear to make his life as happy as I can until the end of my days." And the crowd erupted in cheers. The queen stepped forward and said, "On behalf of the royal family, I thank you all for your support in this matter, and I hope that my grandson will bless each of you the way you have blessed not only him today but also us. I call the ritual over and request the Kitsune maidens and the dragon taskmasters to come so we may welcome our 2 other guests." The people cheered at this and soon began to break up and go back to their business. A man steps beside an ally way across from the castle and asked, "Did you see enough Jiraiya of the Sanins?" Jiraiya dropped his cloak of invisibility and said, "Yes. If you knew I was here, why did you allow me to stay, and who are you?" The man looked at him and said, "I am Aragon, captain of the 12 Dragon Knights and the king's official bodyguard. Everyone here knew you were here the moment you stepped foot on the island yesterday. We waited until we knew who and what you were here for before we decided to do anything about it. Based on what we saw, I say the Hokage asked you to follow him and make sure he was fine." Jiraiya sighed and said, "Yes. A group of men are going to come after him soon, so we were worried that this might have been a trap for him." "I am glad it wasn't." Aragon asked, "Can you give me any info on who these men are and why they are coming after him, and also would you accompany me to see His Highness? He will want to speak to you." Jiraiya nods, and after being led to the king and queen and properly introduced, he told them about Atsuki and everything else he knew concerning Naruto. The king listened quietly and said, "We can protect him here, but he has a wish to return to Konoha, and that worries me. However, I must ask, if you knew who this boy was, why did you not take him away from that village?" Jiraiya sighed and said, "I wanted to, but we believed that if people saw me with a child, then they would have been able to tell he was his dad's child, and then he would have had Iwa as well as a few other countries trying to kill him. It was decided the Hokage would keep an eye on him, where even with the village hating him he would have some protection, though I see it was not nearly enough. I had no idea his life was like that. I knew it was bad, but that was worse than I could ever imagine." The queen looked down and said, "Our people are not happy about this. Should anything else happens, I fear they will destroy your village without caring, and neither I nor my husband would be able to do anything about it. I can only pray that nothing pushes them more." Jiraiya asked, "What will happen?" "No." The king said, "I am going to allow you to return to your lands, but you are not to tell anyone about what you saw or heard here today. You will tell the Hokage that Naruto is with his family and he will return for the exams like he promised, but he will be as a ninja of not only the Hidden Leaf but also Whirlpool, and he will be with a new team. I refuse to let him be under the care of someone like that Kakashi. Even if he did have another sensei, in a sense his official one was nothing but a failure." Jiraiya could only agree and said, "Is there anything else I should know? I mean, hearing that Kushina was a kitsune and so is her son is something new." The king said, "No. That is all for now." Jiraiya thought for a moment and said, "I believe I should be heading back. I don't want Naruto to think I came here to ruin his life here." After hearing everything Jiraiya had said and the king giving a scroll to give to the Hokage of Konoha, he had Aragon take Jiraiya back to the island before the whirlpool. Naruto awoke to a feeling of a weight on his chest, and he slowly opened his eyes and blinked before looking down, noticing a mass of black hair on his chest, and he blinked and moved the hair away and saw the face of Haku asleep on him. It took a few moments, but then he realized that he was not in the seal, so Haku was out, and he tried to remember what happened. The last thing that happened was him sitting in a chair and then waking up here. He heard a groan and saw Haku open her eyes, and she blinked a few moments and turned her head trying to figure out her surroundings, and when she saw she was laying on Naruto, she bolted up off of him and looked around, and then she realized she was not in the seal and she pinched herself and felt pain, and she said, "I am alive," in disbelief. Naruto sat up and asked, "Are you in a clone body?" A female voice from behind Naruto said, "No. She is in her new body, Naruto-sama." Making both teens turn and see a woman with blue hair in her late 30s looking at them with green eyes. Haku asked, "How did this happen and who are you?" The woman said, "Forgive my manners, Lady Haku, I am Ellen, Kitsune priestess of the Royal Order," as she bowed. Naruto blinked and asked, "How do you know her name?" The woman smiled and said, "Well, Your Highness, the people of Whirlpool saw your life when you invoked the rites of the ritual. You invoked your claim of royalty, and as such the people have to know you and respect you to follow your rules, so we all know everything that happened before you sat in the ritual chair. It was because of this that we know of your relationship with Lady Haku here as your future mate. Now I am sorry for not being able to tell you anything further, but Her Majesty had asked me to wait until you both awoke and then bring Lady Haku before her to inform her of her duty as future queen of this country along with her training. Someone will be with you shortly, sir." As she bowed Aegean. Haku asked, "What about Zabuza?" The woman who was still bowed said, "He has already been given his new body and should be learning his official duties as bodyguard soon. I am sorry, Aegean, for being so rushed, but a lot has been planned to get you both ready for what is to come, so I must ask that you come with me, Lady Haku, and you both should know that most likely you won't see each other, Aegean, for at least a month, but you will be able to talk to each other in your heads, but that will be after you are showed how. We must take our leave now, Naruto-sama." Naruto turned to Haku and walked over and gave her a hug and said, "Welcome back," and kissed her, which she returned the kiss. After they broke apart, Haku followed the woman away and Naruto was left sitting on the bed. Naruto thought, "Hey uncle. What now?" Naruto got no answer and he saw the man who he had threatened appear at the door and he said, "It's good to see you Aegean Naruto-sama, and I must apologize for my disrespect of you earlier, but we had to make sure you were who you claimed to be. Now if you will follow me, the king would like to see you." As he turned to walk down another walkway, Naruto got up and followed him and said, "Look, in case I made you mad earlier, I just was repeating what my uncle told me to say." The man beside him started to chuckle and said, "It's quite alright Naruto-sama. I took no offense to it. Truth of the matter is that I was your uncle's bodyguard before he was sealed in you, so if you had acted any other way then I would not have believed you when you said he was in you. By the way, my name is Edger." Naruto smiled and asked, "How come I can't talk to my uncle right now?" Edger said, "It's because he's tired from the process we used to bring your two friends back to life. He probably will be out for about a month or more." Naruto frowned and asked, "So he can't get out, huh?" Edger sighed and said, "Sadly no. We know a great many things, but your father was a genius to summon the only thing that can seal something we can't undo. If we tried to bring him out of you, he would die along with you. The idiot now has to pay the price for his actions." Naruto smirked and said, "Thank God. I was afraid with the way you and that lady were talking everyone was going to walk around me with eggshells on their feet. For you to call my uncle an idiot, show me you want." Edger smiled and said, "We act formally when serious, but when it's not required we try and act with the way we wish to be treated. It is our way of being regal as well as human. It is a flaw that most humans forget." Naruto asked, "You're a dragon, aren't you?" As they walked, Edger said, "Yes, I am one of the Dragon Knights." Naruto looked at him and asked, "What exactly are Dragon Knights?" "I am a little lacking in the way things are here." Edger smiled and said, "Your grandfather will explain everything. We're here anyways. Just go in this door here and I would like to say it's nice to meet you Naruto-sama and welcome to Whirlpool." Naruto smiled and said, "Thank you for welcoming Edger, but if you don't mind just call me Naruto. I don't believe I am better than anyone else." Edger shook his head and said, "That's why you would make a great king when you're older." And he was gone in a puff of smoke. Naruto took a deep breath trying to calm his nerves and knocked on the door. The door opened and he saw the man who was sitting on the throne earlier standing there looking at Naruto with a smile on his face and said, "Welcome Naruto. Please come in." Naruto came in and saw it was a library and the man took a seat and said, "Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Rune Uzumaki. I am the king of Whirlpool Country and your grandfather." Naruto smiled and said, "You have no idea what it's like for me to finally, after all these years, to finally get to meet my family after believing I was an orphan nearly my entire life. Would it be alright if I hugged you?" Naruto's answer was being pulled into a hug by Rune, who had moved faster than Naruto could see. Naruto, after tensing at first, relaxed and held onto his grandfather and then started to cry. Rune frowned at this but held on to Naruto. He frowned because he knew how this simple act was so impressionable on Naruto thanks to the hatred Konoha had given him. His hatred for that village only grew more, but he would not destroy it because he knew that his grandson's precious people would be hurt and he vowed not to let anything hurt him anymore. After Naruto finally stopped crying, Rune stepped back and said, "I am glad to see that you still have a heart in you after what you have been through. Your Kitsune blood must flow strongly to still care for people." Naruto smiled and asked, "I am confused on a lot of things. This being Kitsune is still new to me, as well as having grandparents and an uncle." Rune said, "That's why I have had you brought here. This is the Royal Library of Whirlpool. In these books is the entire history of Whirlpool and how us and the dragons came to be. This is your history. I know you have a lot of questions and many more than you know to ask, so for the next week you will be in this library reading all these books. I know you are wanting to spend time with me and also your grandmother, but we still have other things we have to take care of. I want you to use your kujbunshians to help you read these books and don't just read them. Memorize them, as they will help you as not only a kitsune or a prince but also a ninja and also a king. I have already sent word to the Hokage of Konoha and have notified him that because of you being a child of not only a Konoha citizen but one of Whirlpool, you are now referred to as a dual citizen and also a dual ninja. Your training will start in 2 weeks. This first week you are going to learn from these books, and then after that you will get a chance to be with your grandmother and I, as we are taking next week off to be with you and your friends. I don't want you to leave this room though. There is a restroom behind the door to the right with you some cloths as well as a shower in there and a bedroom to the door on the left. Food will be brought to you for your meals so you can finish at your own pace. Any questions you have left after this week we can answer afterwards. Do you understand? Naruto thought a moment and said, yes. How should I refer to you? Rune smiled and said, if we are not in the throne room you may call me grandfather or Rune, however you are more comfortable, unless it is something that is a public affair, and then you either call me Runasama or Lord or some title like that. There are not many affairs like that unless it's a wedding or we have a formal guest, which we don't have many. I am sorry I can't stay and talk more, Naruto, but if I want to spend next week with you then I have to get my duties done. Naruto smiled and said, I understand, Gramps. Rune chuckled and said, you're just like your mother, disrespectful to adults. I am glad to see you inherited that trait from her. Breakfast will be brought in about an hour, so begin when ready. And he hugged Naruto one more time before leaving. Naruto watched him leave and smiled a true smile and thought, I will make you proud. And created over 200 kage-bunshins that each grabbed a book and started to read. Haku followed Ellen through the castle until she was brought into a garden and she saw the woman who she thought was the queen sitting under a sakura tree reading a book, and Ellen bowed and said, Her Majesty is waiting there for you. I will take my leave now. And left. Haku walked toward the woman who looked up from her book and smiled and said, Welcome Haku, I am Queen Rina, Naruto grandmother. It's a pleasure to meet you face to face. Haku bowed and said, It's a pleasure to meet you, Your Majesty. Rina smiled and motioned for Haku to sit, and when she did she said, It would appear you were trained in proper etiquette. That's good. I know that you must have a lot of questions and I will try to answer them all, but before we begin I would like to tell you a story. I am sure that it will answer many of your questions. Deal. Haku nodded and Rina said, A long time ago there was a great war and humanity was on the brink of destruction. During that time there were many demons, angels and divine beings throughout the world that had been brought here to end the war, because it was not just a war for lives but the very souls of people. The Lord of all creation finally had enough and created 2 other worlds. One for demon, one for angels, and then all that was left here on this world was the divine beings and the humans. Humans, after seeing the destruction of the world that had started to recover from the demons, angels and humans fighting, vowed never to be so weak again, so they started seeking power. At first they thought that if they had allies with the only power left by the Lord of creation then they would be protected, so they sought out all the divine beings and asked them for blessing or protections. Many did so, and that is how bloodlines were first created. After some time people became arrogant with the gifts that had been bestowed on them and they decided they wanted more. The divine beings, seeing the dark intentions of humans, decided not to give them more, so man started searching for any way to get what they wanted. They tried to capture the divine beings and they started wars among themselves over who would get the prizes. Soon man started to forget all about the beings because they had went into hiding, but over the years man would discover one or more of the divine beings and see the power they had and came up with ways to make it tear. It was during this time that humans discovered the first secrets of chakra. Once that happened, the world was forever changes as man became completely arrogant in their new knowledge. As the world continued on and man's quest for power continued, they decided that if they could not capture the divine being and get what they want, no one would, so they began hunting them until only a handful remained. It was during this time that the divine beings had a conflict amongst themselves as to what to do. Some wished to punish humans while others wanted to live in peace. The ones who wanted to punish humans soon went and used their knowledge they had turned themselves into creatures of mass destructions. As you know the tale of the Kyuubi that was told because of its relationship with Naruto, there are 8 other creatures human call demons. Those creatures are the ones that wanted to destroy humans. The kitsunes and the dragons had wanted to live in peace, so after the near destruction of man Aegean, the kitsune and dragons made an agreement with the ones that wanted to end human life. We agreed that we would watch humans from afar, and when a civilization became too bent on its quest for power, we would go and destroy them to the basics Aegean. Even though we did not like the fact that we had to kill to do it, we felt that if we did not set them back every few centuries, that they would not only destroy themselves but us as well. In doing this, the others agreed with us, and over the last few thousand years that has been the way of things. We feared that if we did not stop the other divine beings, then they would destroy humans and themselves, so to balance it out, this was our only choice so all may continue to live. The dragons and the kitsunes, believing that if we stayed away from humans for the most part we could live in peace, came here to these islands and set them up so that we could live life as such. The dragons chose to be the guards of the kitsunes because they were the stronger of the two, while the kitsunes were the wiser of the two, agreed to be the leaders, but we have always treated each other as equals. Our young have stood side by side, and when my grandson asked for the ritual a few days ago, the people of this land saw his life and we voted as one people and accepted him as the prince by not only birthright but choice. The kitsune have always protected the dragons and the dragons have always protected the kitsune. That is what the symbol on our outfits mean. It's a balance of wisdom and strength. Neither getting an upper hand and neither being stronger or inferior than the other. Showing a symbol on her shirt of a kitsune and a dragon in a circle chasing each other. Haku sat quietly, and after Rina finished, Haku asked, "So what is it that I need to know now?" Rina said, "You have been accepted as the fiancé of Naruto, and as you know, this body you have is not your own, but now it is. This body looks just like your other one, but now instead of human blood flowing through you, you have the blood of the kitsunes flowing through you. The history I just told you is the history of our people. I felt that you would need to know about it since one day you will be queen of this kingdom." Haku listened and asked, "I don't mean to sound disrespectful or anything, but I have a question that has been in my mind ever since I first heard about this. Naruto is your grandson and the only heir you have, from what I understand, since neither his uncle or mother are around to rule. What I was curious about was what would have happened if Naruto would not have come here. Is there another Uzumaki, or is there more kitsunes, or, I am not really sure how to ask what I am thinking." Rina smiled and said, "I understand. The truth is that even with Naruto being born an Uzumaki, he still might not have been prince. You see, we don't just give the crown to those who are born of the family. The people as a whole, not just the dragons or the kitsune, but both have to agree on the choice for heir to the throne. The Uzumaki clan has ruled over this land since we first settled together, but had it died out, we have a test that was agreed when we first settled here. The test is one of wisdom, strength, courage, honor, and loyalty. The entire people would watch all who entered the contest and then vote who they would follow. The test was the one Naruto demanded when he got here. You can't cheat or be bribed into doing it because your entire life is displayed for all the people, so if you are doing it for unworthy reasons, the people would know. We just have always had the Uzumaki family do the trials first. In fact, that was why when Naruto demanded it, he first had to pass the test to be allowed. One was to see if he was quick to anger, and that was why the guard got in his face. One was to see if he would bow to someone who is stronger, which he did not, and one was his determination. When he warned the guard, he passed that test. Haku smiled and said, I understand. So what happens now? Rina said, well, I want you to go and test your new body here in this garden with me here, and if you have any questions like how to transform into a kitsune or if something is not right that you think is wrong, let me know, because the next week your body will be setting itself to your soul, so and after that the only way to leave it is to die, but you would go back into the seal on Naruto and then have to get a new body to readjust Aegean. This would keep going on until he dies. It's the same way for me and every other wife or wives of a kitsune for nearly 10,000 years. When this week is over, you will meet your new bodyguard and then begin your kitsune training along with Naruto. Haku asked, what do you mean by that? The guard, I mean. Rina explained, well, remember when I told you our children stood side by side with those of the dragons? You being a kitsune now will have one bodyguard who will stand by you and protect you if you need it. She will be the same age as you. Naruto will have one as well, but as you know, that person is Zabuza, who is now a dragon. We do this to show everyone that we are equal to our friends the dragons. This way neither has any secrets from the other, and this sign of trust only makes the unique bond we have that much greater. Haku asked, how am I a kitsune and how is Zabuza a dragon? Rina said, good question. Remember how I said we are divine beings? We don't have mystical powers that can just make things happen. Remember when I told you about how we blessed humans with bloodlines? The truth of that is we as divine beings can bless the souls of people, so what we do is go and bless the soul, and then through ritual sealing we create a body that just covers the soul like skin over your organs. Think of it like cake frosting. We take the ingredients that are the flour that is a normal human and the extra that we want based on what kind of cake to make, and we add things in it to make it unique like bloodlines, but now in your case it's making you a kitsune, and then we cover the cake with the frosting, which is your new body. Since your body and soul have the changes in it you think about your children, you pass it on to like slices of a cake. Even though the slice is not the original cake, it still has the stuff in it that had made the cake unique. Haku nods and gets up and starts trying basic moves, trying to test her body out, and later moved on to her bloodline and so on and so forth. She was surprised by the way Rina had explained it, and the more she thought of it the more it made sense. Zabuza for his part was having a hell of a time. After he woke up and led to a meeting with Aragon, who explained everything, he was told that he needed to try out his new body, and what better way than a fight. Zabuza was liking being a dragon more and more every moment, and the dragons were quickly giving Zabuza respect as he was progressing in the fight quite well. Currently he was about mid-rank of a dragon thanks to all his battle instincts and experience, but he was learning quickly. The only thing he was not happy about was the 5 dragons sitting on the wall breathing fire, water, lightning, mud, and wind at him while he fought hand to hand against the 20 other guards. Zabuza thought, this is just like the test I took to be a member of the 7 swordsmen. I love this. As he made a mist cover the battlefield. The dragons all stopped and Zabuza chuckled and said, now it's my turn to have some fun. 8 points, heart, liver. Aragon chuckled and thought as he watched the testing, this guy is going to make a great dragon, what the hell? As a water dragon came flying out of the mist and nailed the fire breather, knocking him out. Naruto had, after eating breakfast, discovered a quick way to learn the books and memorize it faster. He had created 400 clones. He had decided to start with the oldest first and work his way forward, reading every book or scroll in one bookcase at a time. Seeing as there was 10 bookcases, he figured he could read 1.5 bookcases a day until he finished the last one. Each shelf had around 200 books and 100 scrolls, and with the extra 100 taking over when one would get frustrated and dispel, giving the other clones the knowledge that he just absorbed, it not only made going through the books and scrolls faster but also kept him from having information overload. At each meal he would dispel the clones in groups of 20 till they finished and then do 400 clones again until the next break. He found the history of battles and the creation of the first bloodlines interesting. He looked back at the only real battles he had actually fought in after reading some of the battles in history, and he could see how his fight with Mizuki as well as against Zabuza and the Demon Brothers and Gato men and the Iwa Nin could have went very different. It was this simple realization that made him realize he wasn't good like he thought he was but lucky. That fact scared him deeply as he read about the battles of World War I, World War II and then the final battles before the Great Intervention as it was called when the demons and angels were taken to another place. Naruto sighed as he sat there thinking, and his grandfather walked in and saw the look on his face and asked, "What's wrong?" Naruto looked down and said, "My life is nothing but luck. Every fight that I have been in since I was a ninja has been won by nothing but pure luck. The actions I took in each of those fights could have gotten me killed." Rune smiled and said, "That's one of the reasons I wanted you to read these things. I noticed it when I watched you memories. You had some good ideas, but the way you did them was what hurt. I wanted you to realize that so when we begin your training you will be ready. Especially after what I learned." Naruto was curious and asked, "What?" Rune said, "I was informed by an interested party who I promise not to say until he thinks you're ready that some men are going to be coming after you soon. One of them is the man who killed the Uchiha clan except for his brother. They want you to take your uncle out of you and kill you. I don't want to see this happen after first meeting you, so your training is going to help you get strong fast, but it's not just physical strength. What good is being strong if you're not smart enough to use it wisely?" Naruto sat quietly and said, "I understand." Rune said, "Good. I wanted to tell you that your friend Zabuza is turning out to be even better than we thought. My friend Aragon has told me that he is very good and that he wants permission to give him the advanced training when he's ready. I told him I had to ask you, so I am asking you since you know them better than we do. In your judgment, do you trust Zabuza and Haku enough that you would fight and die for them? Do you think they would do the same for you, and do you believe that they are worthy of learning all of our secrets?" Naruto said, "Yes. Zabuza is a little rough, but inside of him is a good heart. Haku is like her namesake, pure as snow. I admit she has killed, but so have I, but what I mean is that she protects what is precious to her, and I am the same. Even though I just got here, I feel that this place is precious to me and I would die to protect it because I feel at home here." Rune smiled and said, "I understand. This is and will always be your home, but you also have people in Konoha you feel the same way for. For now you are a ninja of both villages. Someday you will be leader of this one. Your duty is to Konoha for now. However, I have issued a warning to Konoha and I am telling you this. If they hurt you again like they have, the people of Whirlpool will retaliate. You are the prince of Whirlpool. Not by blood and not by namesake. You have been chosen as the next king. You said you would fight to protect us and we would fight to protect you. Do you understand what that means?" Naruto thought for a moment and said, "It's like the will of fire the old man told me about. Yes, I understand." Rune said, "Good. Now let me get back to your studies. I will be sending a message in a few days to Konoha. Do you have anything you would like to be said or sent?" Naruto thought and said, "Well, I would like for the Hokage to let Ayame and her dad at the ramen stand along with Iruka know that I am okay, and ask Iruka to watch Konohamaru for me. Him and his two friends see me as a leader. Zabuza and Haku have friends there who I think would maybe like to hear we made it safe or something, so you might ask them. Tell them if they do send something that I said hi and thanks for the supplies and everything, and I hope they're both doing okay." Rune nodded and said, "I will, and good luck with the rest of your reading." And he left the room, and Naruto got back to what he was reading but stopped and thought about what his grandfather said about some men after him for his uncle. One of them was an Uchiha. Having read about the creation of bloodlines, he looked at his clones and said, "Okay, listen up. While you're reading, if you find anything about weaknesses and strengths of specific bloodlines, especially the Sharingan, read it carefully and then also bring it to me to read because we have to get ready." The clones screamed yes and returned to reading with renewed interest. Naruto went back to reading his book on battle and frowned as he realized how much his life was changing now. It had been nearly 3 weeks since Naruto had left and the members of Team 7 were not happy. The next day after they got back, Kakashi actually showed up on time with the new member, a social nightmare named Sai who was their age, but with the way he acted and the names he called everyone, they all wanted to kill him. He seemed to be good as Sasuke but would not show any other skills he had other than what was demanded at the moment. Kakashi for his part was suspicious of him, but with the bags under his eyes from not only the emotional battle he had been in since his talk the day they got back, along with the traps, pranks, and hate he was getting from the other senseis, as well as the nightmares he's been having of Naruto dying on the wave mission because of his failure and the fact he could not relax with his porn. The Hokage had informed Kurenai about Kakashi punishment, had posted a reward when she found out what she could do if he was caught with the book, had made his life hell. The Konohamaru Corp, after not only hearing about what happened to his boss on the mission from his grandfather, uncle, Naruto teammates and Iruka along with his training trip, and that he was the son of the Yondaime, now looked at Naruto with even more praise and had taken to pranking. Who, you might ask, he was pranking? Well, after getting subtle hints from Iruka, who had made a class project for extra credit to set traps for Kakashi, as well as hearing his uncle and his girlfriend Kurenai talking about it and her little reward, he had gotten his grandfather's collection and was now setting traps at each of Kakashi's favorite hideouts. The problem is that the pranks included anything from stink bombs to exploding tags in the books along with cameras. Yeep. Kakashi life was officially hell so far now. Sasuke was pissed after he could not find anyone to release his eyes. Not only was he pissed about that, he was pissed because he was having to watch Sakura try for hours to learn the same jutsu he copied with his bloodline, but with her smaller chakra pool it was taking her longer, and when the Hokage said he wanted her up to speed on the weight training, she now had 1/8 of her body weight, just like Sasuke had on, and now he watched as she ran around Konoha. She was always slower and had less endurance than either him or Naruto, so now Kakashi had Sasuke and Sai run around Konoha 5 times and timed them, and when they stopped he took the total time both took and was making Sakura practice every day until she was able to make it around the village in the same amount of time, which was 1 hour and 10 minutes. So far she could only make it around the village 2 times in that time, so Sasuke was mad because Kakashi would not teach him anything else until she got up to speed, so now here he was sitting watching her run around in the village and Sai running with her. Kakashi looked at Sasuke and shook his head and thought he could at least work with his teammates to help them get better faster while helping his own skills. I think I see now why Naruto was so pissed. I have to try and apologize to him when he returns. Sakura for her part was starting to have mixed feeling for Sasuke. It was not bad enough that he insulted Naruto and saying Naruto is not worthy of what he has when they learned so much about him. Then there's the fact that he told her that if she did not get done soon he would kill her. Kakashi had told Sasuke that if he heard him threaten a teammate Aegean like that he would make sure his bloodline was sealed off permanent. After that he would just do what Kakashi said and then sit down and brood. Every time someone would mention Naruto a cold feeling would come form him, and the bad thing is that the new guy Sai was always asking things about Naruto. After he heard Naruto was the son of the Yondaime, he was asking everything he could think of about Naruto, from what his training was like to what kind of underwear he wore. To make things worse, people around town had been asking her and all the other rookie genins all kinds of questions about Naruto as well. A little over a week after Naruto left, a message arrived for the Hokage from the land of Whirlpool. Sakura did not know at first exactly what happened, but apparently whatever was in that message sent a ripple across Konoha. The Hokage had a meeting with the council, and after the meeting was over, each of the major clanheads sent a message to the Konoha Flame. The newspaper here in Konoha, and each had a one-page ad that stated Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze was officially under the protection of the Hyuga, Yamanko, Abarame, Inazaku, Nara, Akamaiki, Saratobi clan, and anyone that did anything against him would be considered an attack against a member of those clans. All of the heirs were curious about why, so they went to Sakura. The strange things is most of the conversation was a haze even now. Flashback. Sakura was currently sitting at the Akamaiki barbecue restaurant, having been dragged there by her one-time friend Ino. When she got there, she saw the Team 8 was there along with Team 10 sitting at a table, and Ino made her sit down and said, "Okay, forehead, talk. What happened to make all of our parents declare Naruto off limits, so to speak?" Sakura sighed and said, "I don't know. I have not seen him since what happened when we had our C rank mission turned S rank." Everyone perked up, and Kiba asked, "What happened?" Sakura sighed and said, "Well, our client lied about what our mission was. We were hired to guard a bridge builder named Tazuna. He said the mission was to protect him from bandits." A voice said, "What do you mean, Sakura?" Making everyone turn and see Kurenai and Asuma walk in with a man with green spandex and 3 other genins with him, and they all sat down at the table. Choji smiled and said, "Hey sensei." Asuma smiled and Sakura said, "Well, about a year before our mission, Gato killed the hero of Wave by public beheading to show the people of Wave what happens to anyone who stood in his way. The man turned out to be the son-in-law of our client, who was building a bridge that once finished would make Gato lose all control over Wave. Anyways, Gato hired a missing nin named Zabuza who had a pair of chunins working for him named the Demon Brothers. Sasuke beat them, and Naruto was cut by one of their weapons." Kiba said, "What a klutz." Much of the shock of everyone, Sakura reached across the table and slapped Kiba on instinct, and Kurenai asked, "What happened?" "The Demon Brothers use poison in their weapons, so tell us, Sakura." Acting like nothing happened, Sakura crossed her arms and said, "Naruto stabbed himself and bleed the poison out. After that we continued the mission. We ran into Zabuza, and Naruto saved Kakashi-sensei, and a fake hunter nin interfered in the fight at the last moment and put Zabuza in a fake death. Kakashi was injured from the fight and chakra exhaustion. After that we took the client to his home and met his family. Kakashi taught us the tree climbing chakra exercise as we got ready to fight Zabuza Aegean. Naruto worked himself into the ground, and the day of the battle of the bridge we left him at the house asleep because of chakra exhaustion." At this, all 3 senseis looked at each other. Sakura continued, "Anyways, when we got to the bridge, Zabuza had knocked out all the workers. Sasuke started to fight the hunter nin while Kakashi fought Zabuza. I guarded the client. I don't know exactly what happened because of the hidden mist jutsu, but an evil power washed over the bridge that made it hard to breathe, and I know I thought Sasuke was dead, but the masked nin had only put him in a fake death like he did Zabuza. Kakashi did something that sounded like birds chirping and went to kill Zabuza, but the hunter nin took the blow at the last moment." Guy said, "Chidori, also known as 1000 birds, Kakashi only original jutsu. Continue." Sakura shrugged and said, "Anyways, after the nin died, Gato appeared with a lot of mirk and said he was going to double-cross Zabuza anyways, and Naruto said something to Zabuza, but I was too far away to hear, but I did see Naruto pull out a kunai and toss it to him, which he caught in his teeth since both his arms had kunia in them. Zabuza charged through the men, killing several, and then killed Gato. The merc killed him, and Naruto and Kakashi used Kajbunshin to scare the merc away when the villagers showed up. Sasuke woke up, and Naruto took the bodies of Zabuza and the hunter nin and buried them. He said something about befriending them, but I called him an idiot, but with what happened later I guess I was wrong." Everyone was curious, and Ino asked, "What happened?" Sakura sighed and said, "For some reason Naruto started to change after that day. He started training by himself and took Zabuza's sword and learned pressure points. Trust me, he knocked me out a few times. Anyways, he kept complaining Kakashi was playing favorites with Sasuke and somehow he had found Gato base. He wound up walking into an ambush with some of the mercs from the bridge and an Iwa nin named Audley, White. At this each of the senseis flinched and Ino asked, "What's wrong, sensei?" Asuma sighed and said, "Audley White, S-rank missing nin from Iowa, he was called the Maiden Killer. He became a missing nin after he killed over 200 men women a few years ago." "What happened after that, Sakura?" Sakura sighed and said, "Naruto heard how that Audley guy had planned to attack the client's family while I was guarding them and Naruto was guarding the client at the bridge." Kurenai asked, "Where were Kakashi and Sasuke?" Sakura said, "Well, Kakashi took Sasuke every day to train after he awoke his Sharingan." Kurenai cracked her knuckles under the table and said, "Finish the story, Sakura." Sakura nods and said, "Somehow some nins from Whirlpool came and Naruto killed the Iwa nin but not before he bragged who Naruto father was. Turned out one of the nins from Whirlpool was Naruto uncle. Everyone was stunned and Shino said, Naruto killed that Iwa nin." Sakura said, "Yeah, his uncle and the other nins that was with him were too busy fighting the mercs to help and the Iwa nin wanted Naruto head. He wanted the glory of killing the Yondaimi's son." Everyone at the table flinched at that. Guy asked, "Are you sure about that?" Sakura looked confused and said, "Yes, the Hokage even confirmed it. He looks just like his dad if you think about it. Just add those strange whiskers to the Yondaime and he's the spitting image of him." Asuma asked, "Well, what happened after he killed the Iwa nin?" Sakura said, "Well, he raided Gato hideout and gave the people of Wave all the money and treasure he found to help them recover minus a few changes of cloths he kept for himself. He came back and him and Kakashi had words Aegean but I don't know about what. We completed the mission and the people of Wave named the bridge after him. On the way back Naruto had switched places with a Kajbunshin and had came back ahead of us. I haven't seen him since but I know he made it here and left." Kiba said, "Wait a minute, Naruto is the son of the Yondaime, killed an S-rank missing nin, became a hero of the country and has family from another village, what next? He's engaged to some hot chick and a prince." Giggling could be heard and everyone turned to look at the girl with buns in her hair and Lee asked, "What's so funny, Tenten?" Tenten said, "Well, dog boy, actually yes on both of those." Everyone said, "What?" Asuma asked, "What do you mean, Tenten?" Tenten sighed and said, "From what I was told when he came in our shop to resupply before he left, his mother was the princess of Whirlpool country and he is engaged to a girl through an arranged marriage. I know who but I can't tell you who she is because I was sworn not to by my father but apparently his uncle can't take the throne so when Naruto get old enough he is next in line to be king after his grandparents step down." That's what he said though. Everyone was stunned. Shikamaru sighed and said, "He's troublesome, is he going to be back?" Tenten said, "Yes, he's supposed to be back for the Chunin exams. I know he's supposed to use his summons to send a message to the Hokage every couple of weeks." Everyone ears picked up and Ino asked, "What summons does that idiot have?" Tenten said, "All I know is he summoned something called Gambunta 2 times in a row." All the senseis fell out of their chairs at this making everyone look at them. Asuma stood up and asked, "Are you sure about that, Tenten?" Tenten said, "Yeah. He was bragging to my dad about it though he said something about some pervert Orthor but I was busy getting his things so I did not hear him too well." Kiba asked, "What's so special about this summon you all are talking about? How can some pervert make you all beat red like that?" Kurenai said, "The only way for Naruto to get the contract to summon Gambunta is if he were to get permission from the Orthor of those perverted Ika books. None other than Jiraiya of the Sanins." Kiba screamed, "He's getting taught by a Sanin." A white-haired man walked in and said, "No, I just let him sign the contract and he passed Gambunta test himself." It's good to see you again, Asuma. Asuma nodded and asked, to what do we owe the pleasure of your visit, Jiraiya-sama? All the genins were awed. Jiraiya sighed and said, I was actually looking for all the sensei here and I heard you all talking about Naruto, so I thought I would see what you were saying. I hate to say it, but everything you heard is true. Naruto is the prince of Whirlpool Country, and to put it bluntly, after they saw his memories of what his life was to prove who he was, let's just say that Konoha not being destroyed because of about 10 people, as he sat down. Sakura asked, what do you mean by that? Why would them looking at his memories make them want to attack Konoha? Jiraiya said, I did not say attack, I said destroy, and they could do it no problem. As for why they would want to destroy Konoha, the answer is simple, Kyuubi. Each of the sensei flinched and Asuma asked, what are you doing, Jiraiya-sama? Jiraiya sighed and said, it's part of the reason Konoha is still standing. If Konoha does not want an open war with Whirlpool, they have to do certain things. The truth of Naruto heritage must be told. Since you all know about him being the son of the Yondaime and the princess of Whirlpool, I don't have to say that. Next, the truth of the Kyuubi defeat has to be told, and Konoha has to make a formal apology to Naruto as well as admit what they have done. Failure to do all three would result in Konoha destruction. Shikamaru closed his eyes and said, it's sealed, ain't it? Making everyone look at him. Jiraiya said, smart kid. The truth is Naruto's father could not kill Kyuubi, so he sacrificed his life to summon the death god to seal Kyuubi into his newborn son. Naruto was made a human sacrifice at nearly 3 hours old so Konoha can survive, and Konoha hates him for it. The people of this village have tried to kill him over 2,000 times. Not to mention all the hatred, abuse, torture, starvation. Hell, they even had all of you be cruel to him and you never realized it. Sakura asked, what do you mean? How did we do anything to him? In shock like all the other rookies. Asuma said, how would you feel if everyone your age was told to stay away from you like you were the plague? How would you feel if you said hello to a kid to try and be friends? Parents tell their kids to beat him up, and if he fought back they would have ABNU arrest him. How would you feel if the teachers put genjutsu over your test and burned your books so you could not learn and did everything they could to make sure you died? Do you really think he liked orange? Tenten said, that's all any store would sell him. Dad told me when he learned who he really was that he had other store owners in the past tell him that if he sold anything to Naruto without the Hokage forcing him, they would burn our store to the ground, and he even told me once that a civilian walked up to me at the academy to push me on a swing and his friends were talking to my dad and said that's how easy it would be to hurt me if he did not do as they said. As everyone was stunned. Guy said, that's why the only place that would serve him food was the ramen stand, because the people would make the same threats or make him pay 3 times more than everyone else for rotten food. Jiraiya said, and the worst part is because of the law the Hokage passed to try and make it where he could try and have a normal life. He never knew why he was hated until an academy teacher tricked him into breaking into the Hokage tower and stealing the forbidden scroll by saying he could learn one jutsu on it he would pass the academy test. Truth was he tried to kill Naruto and told him about the law and the Kyuubi inside of him, but he tried to tell him that he was the Kyuubi instead of it being sealed when he saved Iruka, who showed up in time to save Naruto and learned Kujibunshin. Ino asked, so is that how he passed? He learned Kujibunshin instead of regular bunshins. Jiraiya said, he physically can't make regular bunshin, at least not yet. He would have to get his chakra control to perfect to be able to make regular ones because of the fox in him. Everyone was stunned and Kurenai asked, so do any of you think he is the Kyuubi or the hero his father wanted him to be seen as? Shino said, he is just like my clan. Our bugs live in us but they are different than us. Everyone thought about that and they all had to agree. Sakura asked, as the Kyuubi, that weird feeling I felt on the bridge? Asuma said, yes, The seal was made so Naruto can use the Kyuubi chakra, and when Naruto dies so does the fox. Besides the chakra, Naruto has a healing factor that is like 10x faster than a normal person, and from what we can tell, his children, if he had any, would most likely have it also. But that's just a guess because no Jinchuriki has ever had children, people always kill them before they're old enough to. Naruto said that he was pulled into the seal and faced the fox and told him that he had to pay rent by giving him chakra when he asked for it, or he would find some way to kill himself and take the fox with him. Shikamaru asked, "Now that we know the truth about why Naruto is hated here, why would Konoha be scared enough of a country I have never heard of to admit this? It does not make sense." Jiraiya sighed and said, "The reason you have not heard about Whirlpool is they try and stay out of the rest of the world's affairs, and because of that, Whirlpool is the oldest of the hidden villages as well as the strongest and most secretive. During the Second Ninja War, Iwa tried to go there and get them to aid in fighting against us. The king, who is Naruto's grandfather, refused, and an Iwa nin tried to blackmail the king into doing it. His uncle, named Sherlock Uzumaki, went to the capital of Iwa and destroyed half of the village in less than a day and killed nearly 1/5 of Iwa's ninja. They sent a simple message to each of the hidden villages after that. Leave us out of your fight or the next village won't be standing. Until I went there following Naruto to make sure he made it safely and that this was not a trap. We did not even know the name of that one ninja or that he was Naruto's uncle. Naruto's mother kept who she was a secret to everyone. All we knew was that she was from Whirlpool. Each of us who fought in the war heard about that attack, but without a name, no one knew who he was that did it, and no one who saw him lived. Everyone was either stunned or scared when they heard this." Jiraiya said, "The heir to the throne of Whirlpool has to take a test, but the test is one that can't be cheated on. The people of the country all watch the heir's entire life and then vote if they want him or her to rule over them, and Naruto was given the test and they saw everything that has happened to Naruto. That is why all the clans are protecting Naruto. They're scared that if anyone hurts him, the entire village would be destroyed." Neji asked, "Why would Naruto's uncle not take the throne instead of him?" Jiraiya said, "Simple. Remember the test I told you where they saw his memories? He stopped at the scene where he destroyed part of the capital of Iwa. He said that he could not in good conscience lead the village after killing so many. He is a special Junin. It's not him the council is scared of though. Everyone over the age of 15 or at least Chunin level in the village, including civilians, and there are about as many people in their village as there are in Konoha. Based on one ninja, the rest of the world is scared of Whirlpool. Imagine what the rest are like." Shikamaru sighed and said, "It's too troublesome to say, but I think we all see Naruto different." Everyone was in their thoughts, and Ino said, "Who would have thought that a secret like this would be hidden from us?" Jiraiya sighed and said, "I should warn you that when Naruto returns he will be different. He has been through this torture his whole life and then discover who his parents are from an enemy ninja when no one in his home village would tell him, and then to learn that he had family out there that if they would have known about him would have protected him from what he's been through. He is going to be different." Shikamaru asked, "What is the real reason that the people of Whirlpool wanted everyone in the village to know the truth of Naruto? Surely they think that this would make some people hate him more." Jiraiya looked at Shikamaru as everyone else looked at him and said, "You're smarter than most think. You're right. The truth is Naruto now has immense political power because of him being confirmed Prince of Whirlpool. Naruto, even though everything that has happened, still wants to protect those who are precious to him and have been kind to him, and there are less than 20 that are included in that. The king respects that and has given Konoha a chance with two options. One, Naruto will be represented as a ninja of both the Hidden Leaf Village and Whirlpool that both villages can be proud of and work toward a possible treaty, or the second is after everyone knows the entire truth. If Konoha chooses to ignore the warning they have been given, the people of Whirlpool will have no problem killing everyone with the exception of those close to Naruto." The king told me that the law that I told you about that limited your knowledge as to what was the truth is what helped give Konoha the chance to keep from fighting. His exact words were parents always want to see their children surpass them. The choices that will affect the future will be determined by the actions of his peers. He does not want people to instantly befriend his grandson but treat him as an equal like he should have been from the start. Neji stood up and said, his fate was decided the moment he was born. If people are going to hate him, then there is no way he can change his fate. This threat is nothing and people will do as they please. As he left and the others all looked at him and a few shook their heads. Ino asked, what do you think, forehead? Sakura said, I don't know. With everything that happened and with everything I have learned, I don't understand. Shikamaru sighed and said, it's too troublesome to hate him for that, and I say we should try and get to know him better. Choji said, anyone who eats ramen like him is a good person, making everyone snicker. Kiba said, he's an idiot, I don't care if he has the Kyuubi in him or not. I will still kick his ass. Right, boy? As he rubbed Akamaru's head as they got up and left. Hinata looked down and said, I am scared of him now. In a stutter, shocking everyone because of her devotion to him in the past. Kurenai looked disappointed in Hinata and said, Hinata, how can you be scared of him? What is the difference between the guy you said you love and who he is? The only thing different is that you now know what's inside him. Hinata looked up and said, I guess you're right. I don't know, sensei. Shino said, as I said, he is no different than my clan. We are not our bug and our bugs are not us. As he pushes his glasses up. Ino said, it don't matter, he won't ever be as good as Sasuke-kun. As she crossed her arms and got up and left. Shino sighed and got up and left, finding the way people think illogical. Choji said, come on Shika, let's go watch some clouds. Shikamaru said, troublesome. As he got up and left with him. Sakura did not know what to think as she got up to try and sort through everything. Lee said, I think that it is unyouthful to look at someone whose flames burn brightly like that, as he got up and left. All the senseis looked at each other and Jiraiya said, your friends are doing fine, Tenten. In fact, I was asked to give this to you. As he pulled out a scroll and handed it to her. All the senseis were curious and she opened it and laughed as she read it and said, if you send a message back to them, tell them I said we will see. As she got up with a smile on her face and left. When she was gone, Asuma put his cig out and said, what was that about, Jiraiya-sama?